I was sitting in my office on Broadway in New York on a Friday evening, wrapping up the annual reports for the firm, when a notification popped up on my smartphone screen. My wife, Sarah, 36 years old, had just posted a video on TikTok for her 1,200 followers. Finally escaping from a domineering partner and finding true passion. I'm thrilled. I frowned slightly and liked it. For a moment, the device froze. 45 seconds later, a text came in. "Did you really like my breakup post?" "Of course, that's great. When are you planning to pack your things?" And silence. No sobs, no pleas to reconsider. She had made her decision. I took a deep breath, set the device aside, and looked out the window. The streets shimmered in the twilight, the metropolis pulsed with its energy, and my reality had suddenly flipped upside down. Sarah always seemed independent, but behind the mask and motivational posts was pure fiction. She joined me at the firm 3 years after our marriage as the art director. I thought it was wise to give her a chance to shine. In the end, everything that kept the company afloat was done by me: partners, deals, budget, plans. She handled social media content and occasionally updated brochures. I returned to the reports, but the thoughts wouldn't leave. She preached about her independence, about a fresh start with Ethan, 33, her new perfect gentleman. The post was artfully crafted, as if she wasn't just leaving but freeing herself from a toxic husband. Comments poured in. Pilates friends praised her bravery. Sister Olivia claimed I was a typical toxic guy who doesn't respect a powerful woman. I watched the video again, liked it once more. For a moment, the idea flashed. Let it be. 10 minutes later, Sarah called. "We need to talk," she said, suppressing emotions. "No," I replied evenly. "You've decided." And in that second, I realized, now it's a game, and I'll play it by my rules. First, I logged into our business profiles. Sarah thought she owned the situation, but in reality, the rights to the enterprise were entirely mine. I started preparing for what would happen in the coming days. I blocked the company credit cards, changed access codes, created duplicates of all files. Everything that truly belonged to her was personal items, but the business remained mine. While I worked, my phone wouldn't stop. Texts from Sarah, from gentle persuasions to sharp warnings. I read them, noted them, but didn't respond. Every move of hers was predictable, like watching a cheap movie plot. That night, I fell asleep for the first time in a long while without worries. In my mind, ideas still swirled about how easily people build myths in online spaces. At that moment, I understood. The saga was just beginning. In the morning, I woke up at dawn. In New York, the city came alive slowly. Mist over the river, occasional taxi horns, and pigeons pecking at scraps on the sidewalk. But in my office, it was time to act. Sarah had no idea that the advertising company she called our firm had been mine from the start. I settled at my desk, turned on the computer, and checked the balances. It immediately caught my eye. Sarah's credit cards were active, with access to the corporate fund. She saw this as her power, but in reality, it was my generosity. I canceled both. Updated passwords for all platforms, databases, email, online banking. Sarah couldn't do anything, even if she wanted to. Right after, I sent messages to partners, politely, professionally, without mentioning Sarah. The main goal, to show that the firm was operating without interruptions and no one would lose their assignments. While I was busy, the phone buzzed with notifications. The first one from Sarah. "What have you done? Why can't I access the accounts?" I replied concisely, "Everything's fine. You're no longer managing the firm. I'll arrange for everything to go smoothly." But her tone surprised me. She mixed shock, anger, and confusion. She believed the universe would revolve around her steps, but in reality, she didn't even suspect how far ahead I had planned. A couple of hours later, she called. "You can restore my access to the office and credit cards." "Sarah," I said without emotion, "I can't. You've decided. You've publicly announced the breakup and moving on to Ethan. Everything related to the company stays with me." "But I thought we—" Her voice trembled. "You can't just cut me off from everything." "I can, and I have." I heard her breathing heavily, trying to compose herself. But I moved on, changed the locks in the premises, and notified the building manager that Sarah was no longer allowed. She wasn't prepared for that. All day, I handled coordination. Contacts with contractors, task audits, sessions with partners, everything flowed smoothly. But at the same time, I monitored Sarah's online profiles. She tried to portray herself as the victim. Posts with tags like independent woman, my passion, fresh start, every like and comment I noted for myself. By noon, the first performance happened at the entrance. Sarah and Ethan materialized at the door. A van parked, boxes with personal items in hand. She expected to take whatever she wanted and leave with a sense of triumph. But the locks were already updated. I sat in the room, silently observing. "We need access," she yelled at security. "This is mine." "Per the lease agreement," the guard replied, "only Mr. Harper." "But I'm his wife," Sarah shrieked, "and the art director." I got up from the desk, slowly approached the exit. "Sarah, all your personal items will place in one area for pickup. But office equipment, PCs, contracts, that's company property, you know that." "This is unfair," she screamed. I put my heart into it. I exhaled. This was her fantasy. She imagined that designing a few brochures and TikTok content was the foundation of the company I had built for 6 years. "Sarah," I said softly, "I'll account for your contribution once it actually brings in revenue and partners. For now, this is business. Everything else is personal." She reached for boxes with equipment, but security stood by. Ethan, who tried to look decisive, seemed pathetic, tall, with a stylish haircut, but completely helpless in business. I noticed doubts appearing on his face for the first time in their shared days. In the following hours, Sarah called partners, trying to sway them to her side. In most cases, she encountered surprise and confusion. "Didn't you post that you're leaving Harper?" partners asked. "Yes, but I can still assist," she desperately replied. "We work with Mr. Harper. We've already seen what you offer. Thank you." Meanwhile, her texts and calls kept coming to me, from warnings to pleas for restoration. I ignored everything. I knew emotions are vulnerability, and I was playing by the rules I set. That evening, I saw the first cracks in their pair. Ethan, who had tried to maintain resolve all day, started getting angry. In their chat, I saw screenshots. He complained about the lack of funds and that she offered nothing to partners. "Maybe we should just go back and try again," he scribbled to Sarah. "No, I deserve better," she shot back. It was amusing to watch how the perfect passion fell apart because it depended only on someone else's assets. I finished the day ensuring all legal and financial steps were followed. The office is secured, partners notified, her access blocked. I settled in the chair, looked at the sunset over the river, and realized the game is just picking up steam. The morning in New York was overcast. Mist cascaded from the tops of buildings into the narrow alleys of Soho, and occasional buses creaked along the asphalt as I pulled up to the office. I arrived early to check that all security measures were in place. New locks, security instructed, team warned. It was hard not to smirk remembering that just a week ago, Sarah fantasized about her new destiny with Ethan. Now everything depended on this pair's maneuvers and how ready they were for facts. At 9:30, the reception buzzed, knocking at the door. The guard glanced at the monitor and reported, "Mr. Harper, they're here." I left the room. On the sidewalk stood Sarah, her curls perfectly styled, her face with the usual confident grimace, next to Ethan with a trendy bag and a slightly tense gaze. In Sarah's hands were containers with personal items, photos, volumes, a couple of folders with ideas. "We need access," she yelled when the guard opened. "This is ours." "All personal items will provide in a separate area," the guard said evenly. "But equipment and documents are company property." "This is unfair," Sarah squealed. I put my soul into it. I approached, smiling. "Sarah, everything that truly held the company together is partner connections, deals, and budget. All that's mine. You can take personal items. Everything else stays here." Ethan tried to interject. "Listen, we just want to get her stuff." He tried to sound firm, but anxiety seeped into his tone. "All her personal items are in containers in the lobby," I said. "The rest is company property." Sarah lunged at the entrance, trying to open it, but the new locks held. She started pounding her palm on the panel. "Did you really take everything from me?" she screamed. "Yes," I replied calmly. "You chose this yourself." Moments stretched like hours. Ethan looked lost, his efforts to maintain firmness evaporating with each second. I saw the first signs of horror on Sarah's face. Her perfect image of a powerful, independent lady was cracking. "This is unfair," she continued to scream. "You used me." I just nodded. I always gave you a chance to prove yourself. But real work is more than TikTok content and brochures. Everything that supported the firm, I did. Realizing words weren't enough, Sarah called friends. I saw alerts. Urgent, he's locked me out, flashed on the screen. But partner contacts and sessions went on as usual. The office was under control. Half an hour later, Sarah tried contacting key partners directly. She called, sent emails, promising that now she was the main creative force of the firm and that all assignments are under her control. The first contact with a partner failed. "Good day," she said firmly. "I'm now in charge of all ideas. You need to switch to me." "Sorry," the partner replied. "We've always dealt with Mr. Harper. We're happy with the current team." Sarah tried to argue that she was the key creative mind, but the partner just exchanged glances with his assistant. He didn't get what she was talking about. After several such contacts, it became clear that her role was overstated. Meanwhile, Ethan started losing his composure. He whispered to Sarah, "Maybe we should just leave and find another way." "No," she replied, "we have to prove who's the genius here." "I thought this would be just ideas and inspiration," Ethan grumbled. "But here, partners are ignoring us." I quietly smirked behind them, watching their tiny, perfect world crumble. By noon, security was handling the situation. All of Sarah's personal items were neatly packed and ready for pickup. Ethan and she tried to argue, but I made it clear no one was leaving with company equipment. This is just the beginning, I thought, and they're already capitulating. Throughout the day, Sarah tried different tactics, from warnings via messages to complaints about me to partners. But every maneuver backfired on her. Some contractors laughed when she tried to promise them something, others just hung up. By dusk, I summed up. The office is secured, all protective measures implemented. Sarah and Ethan learned their first lesson in facts. And most importantly, this was the first day their myth of independence and dominance shattered against reality. When I finally settled at the desk that evening, realizing the volume of what had happened in a day, I felt a strange relief. This day showed that the strategy works, Sarah's reactions are predictable, and Ethan is no more than a ghost of firmness. That night, I fell asleep without worries for the first time in a week, watching the mist over the New York River gradually fade, as if cleansing the metropolis of the myths Sarah so stubbornly maintained. The next morning in New York greeted with mist and a cool breeze from the river. The city was still lazily coming alive, but I was already in the office by 7. Today was the day to monitor the consequences of Sarah and Ethan's maneuvers, and I felt quiet satisfaction. Everything was unfolding according to plan. Her social media posts sparkled with positivity, but behind that mask lurked anxiety. Already in the morning, she tried to sway graphic suppliers that now she was the main creative genius of the firm, but facts were harsh. "Hello, mister," she began, trying to sound confident. "I'm now in charge of ideas for your team, and we need to approve new supplies." "Sorry," the administrator said, his tone calmly surprised, "but all assignments we handle with Mr. Harper. We've worked with you before, and your options aren't needed." Sarah tried to convince, claimed she was the art director, that the whole concept is from her. The administrator snorted and hung up. "This is unreal," Ethan whispered as Sarah frantically scrolled her gadget. "I thought this would be easier." "I told you," I thought with a cold smirk, observing through the office window. "This isn't a game." All day, Sarah made efforts that only confirmed. Without the system, partners, and financial base, she was nothing. She wandered the alleys of Soho, calling potential partners, promising her creative magic. At best, she got surprise, at worst, irony. I monitored everything from the office. The management system showed partners requesting confirmation on who now handles ideas, and every time the choice was clear, everyone stayed with me. By dusk, Sarah tried contacting our lead partner directly. In the conversation with him, she tried to prove that she deserved half the assignments. "I was the creative core of your campaign," she yelled into the phone. "Sorry," the partner replied. "We've always interacted with Mr. Harper. We value reliability and expertise. Thank you." Sarah's heart sank. She didn't expect the world not to revolve around her plan. Meanwhile, Ethan began showing true colors. He was constantly nervous, complaining that he had no skills in working with partners, that funds were running out, and the motivational project was turning into chaos. His firmness burst when he realized he could no longer rely on someone else's assets. "We need to monetize somehow," he grumbled, "and she promises things she won't deliver." Sarah in horror tried to cheer him up, but her own myth of power was crumbling. "But we have to show who's creative here," she screamed. "We deserve triumph." I sat in the office and quietly smirked. This day was the peak of the first week of their perfect destiny. With each failure, each failed contact, each undelivered service, their picture fell apart. By noon, the situation heated up. Sarah decided to stage an open event outside our building, setting up a table with a sign, "Sarah Harper, Creative Magic," trying to attract passers-by and partners. She wore a flawless outfit, perfect hairstyle, a grimace as if nothing had happened. "This is all that's left," she thought. "They'll understand I'm better." Ethan stood nearby, clearly irritated and exhausted. He reached out to her. "Maybe we should just bail," he said quietly. "No," Sarah yelled. "This is our moment to prove." Partners approached, looked, and left, not understanding what was being pushed on them. One even came closer and asked, "Sorry, are you seriously doing this?" "Yes, I can help with promotion," Sarah tried to sway. "Thank you," the partner said and headed into the office. The situation unfolded amusingly but dramatically. Sarah and Ethan's fantasy of a new independent destiny burst against the harsh reality of business. Every step only emphasized. Without the system, skills, and real work, they were zero. That evening they left, taking only personal items, exhausted, angry, and humiliated. I looked at the New York River through the office window, inhaled the cool evening air, and smirked. We won the game, but the most exciting part was ahead. Dealings with financial demands, legal tricks, and the full exposure of Ethan. The next morning, New York looked gray and wet. The river reflected heavy clouds, and a light breeze lifted moisture from the sidewalks. I arrived at the office before the team, checking fresh updates on partners and ideas. Sarah and Ethan on the horizon had already started new attacks, this time on the financial front. The first message came to the company email, a detailed invoice from Sarah for 4 years of her role in the company. The document had it all. Creative leadership, $500,000. Image creation, $85,000. Emotional investments, $120,000. Lost potential revenue, $600,000. Total, $1,305,000. I leaned back in the chair and laughed quietly. Seriously, for TikTok content and a couple of brochures, the page with such numbers seemed like a farce, if not for the fact that it was an attempt to milk money. I opened my archive and composed a response. In it I noted, office rent, salaries, company expenses, credit cards, expert payments, $278,456, all documented with receipts and statements. In the end, a clear balance. Sarah was actually in debt to me. At the same time, she started contacts with my key partners, trying to sway them, promising true creative talent and experience with the firm. But partners were already aware of the changes, and most just mocked her efforts. "Do you think you can run a company where you haven't brought in a single partner in the last 4 years?" One partner wrote her in chat. Sarah tried to justify, "I was the art director, I put my heart into it." But the response was uniform, confusion and denial. The next day, she filed a court application for temporary financial support, claiming I allegedly forced her to work for free and deprived her of earnings. My lawyer just snorted. She doesn't realize her salary was nominal, no bonuses accrued, no premiums issued. Everything is documented. The day turned into a series of contacts with lawyers, auditors, and banking specialists. I canceled all company credit cards, blocked account access, and filed notices of potential fraud since Sarah tried using the firm's EIN for loans. At the same time, I monitored their relationship. Ethan started showing signs of real horror. "Maybe we should just admit defeat," he grumbled once in a TikTok live when Sarah was filming an inspirational video. "No," she shot back, "we deserve success." But there was no success. Every day they ran into partner misunderstandings, contractor denials, and legal barriers. Their entire perfect destiny crumbled like a house of cards. I continued my business. The new art director had already started, partners were satisfied, ideas were implemented without delays. and Sarah's financial papers were added to the court case, where her demands met with irony from lawyers and official evidence showing her minimal role. A week after sending the invoice, Sarah realized that even basic temporary support payments wouldn't match the amounts she wanted. She tried appealing to former partners directly, threatening lawsuits, but it looked pathetic and useless. Ethan, meanwhile, vanished from social media, stopped participating in contacts and chats. His firmness completely burst. He couldn't handle partners, ideas, or even simple office tasks. Sarah, in despair, tried to maintain the powerful woman image on TikTok and Patreon, trying to raise funds for a fresh start. But donations were tiny, $55 from mom and a couple of likes from friends. It all seemed like a farce, if not so tragic. I calmly monitored the process, compiled reports, noted her maneuvers. Everything she did worked against her. Every financial step, every message or partner contact was documented, forming a complete set of evidence. 2 weeks later, the court deemed her demands partially baseless. She received temporary support of $1,500 for 3 months. Otherwise, all her financial claims were rejected. And Ethan, he disappeared as soon as he realized his inspiration had dried up and funds were gone. He no longer appeared on social media. Sarah was left alone with the consequences of her actions. That day, I settled at the desk in the office, looked at the river, and inhaled the fresh air. It's all done. The firm is secured, partners happy, business going, and I learned a lesson. Sometimes the most destructive myths crumble from simple truth and documentation. Almost a month had passed since Sarah and Ethan tried to seize my company. New York greeted me with warm sunshine, the mist dissipated, and the river sparkled with reflections of old brick facades. Everything around seemed to hint, life goes on and myths crumble, leaving only facts. In the morning, I came to the office where the new art director, Emily, a specialist with an impressive portfolio, was already working. She calmly reviewed fresh ideas, adjusted campaign schemes, and prepared a report for the lead partner. The team smiled, worked cohesively. The atmosphere was efficient and without fuss. "Good morning, Mr. Harper," Emily said. "The partner is on the line, ready to discuss the report." "Excellent," I replied, feeling that peace and system had finally returned to the office. Meanwhile, Sarah tried to restore some reputation. She filmed a TikTok video portraying herself as a powerful, independent businesswoman, but the number of likes and comments sharply decreased. People started seeing the reality behind the facade. No partner support, no financial base, and Ethan, her perfect companion, gone. This time, Ethan didn't interfere. His profiles were empty, texts ignored. It seemed he realized the new destiny was built on someone else's assets, and now they're gone. Sarah was left alone, with basic financial support and a pile of failures. She tried to create a myth of success, but facts were harsh. Her TikTok audience was melting, partners didn't respond to offers, and her former perfect companion completely vanished from her reality. In the office, life flowed its course. Partners returned, satisfied with reliability, fresh ideas launched successfully, and my work with audits and legal papers kept the budget under control. A couple of weeks later, I received a court notification. All of Sarah's financial claims were rejected, except for the temporary support already issued. Simple and without extra fuss. But the decisive blow came not from the court. A few days later, I got a text from Ethan's ex-friend, Jessica. She sent screenshots. Ethan continued seeking new sponsors and trying to connect with women for money. Sarah saw this and truly broke down for the first time, not for public show, but because her fate turned out to be an empty myth. I sat at the desk in the office, looking at the New York River, and reflected. Sometimes the greatest power is calm, planning, and documenting every maneuver. Sarah and Ethan's chaos crumbled on its own because myths can't withstand facts. Partners and the team watched as the office returned to its usual rhythm. New energy appeared, fresh concepts, and even ideas delayed for a week due to the fuss started bearing fruit. I myself felt independence. No more managing chaos. I could fully focus on firm growth and personal matters. And that's when I met Rebecca, an online promotion expert with whom we started collaborating. She was not only talented, but had her own career, independent and firm. Unlike Sarah, Rebecca didn't seek easy paths and didn't depend on others' assets. Together, we reviewed firm plans, launched new campaigns, traveled to partner sessions in the States and Canada. And gradually, day by day, my reality returned to a normal flow, without fuss, without fakeness, but with real work and people who value efforts and expertise. Sarah tried to take off on social media, but her audience was small, and all efforts to show herself as triumphant ended in failure. Her fantasy of a new life with Ethan evaporated along with the funds and his presence. She returned to family, set up a new office on minimal assets, and all her loud declarations turned into empty phrases. I finished the month with a sense of triumph and peace. The firm is secured, partners satisfied, budget in order, and I myself learned to value reliability and people who truly work and generate value. And finally, a small, symbolic act. I bought a new set of dishes, replacing the one Sarah broke during her outbursts. Now it stood on the table and reminded me, items come and go, but truth and efforts remain.